Watching a feature-length movie can be quite an arduous task. You're asked to fully devote 2 straight hours to wholly new material, new characters, and care about a series of events that usually has absolutely nothing to do with you. As with any piece of art, the experience can be taxing emotionally, intellectually, and for some physically. But in the best of cases, it pays off in dividends and begs of you to come back just to experience it all again, which gets me into my topic for today, the beauty of rewatches.
But I'm going to give you 4 words to live by. New is always better.
The main sentiment that I've heard against rewatches has to do with Barney Stinson's oldest rule: new is always better. Why rewatch and re-experience something that I have already seen when there are new experiences out there, ventures into the unknown that themselves might surpass the absolute peaks that I have reached? And I agree. Experiencing new pieces of art is essential, but at the same time, I don't think that the re-experiencing of old art should be brushed away so easily. The mere fact that you have already watched something doesn't mean that you have discovered everything about it, and in the best pieces of art, it is the exact opposite because of how layered the greatest and most rewatchable films tend to be. Personally, my favorite way to go into my first watch of a movie is blind. Of course, it is hard to always do this, but I think there's so much to be gained from a first watch being one of absolute discovery, a genuine foray into the unknown, and a lot of my favorite movies of all time I went into this way the first time around. Subsequently, I also find that there is a lot to be gained from art when you go in knowing what you're getting. Going beyond the rewatching of movies, I also think that there is much to be gained from the re-listening of albums and songs. Truthfully, I think there are only a handful of albums that I have ever loved off of a first listen. To me, I have often found my first experiences with art to be ones of discovery, and the subsequent rewatches and re-listens have been ones of understanding. And when I truly fall in love with projects, of course there are plenty of exceptions, examples where I have immediately been able to fall in love with a project and get a deep level of understanding from a piece of art instantly, but even then there is so much to be gained from re-experiencing the art when the art has been made with true depth and layering. For the most part, I argue that all rewatches fall into one of 2 categories. The first is a comfort rewatch, and I imagine this is the type that people are most accustomed to and search out for. Then there's the depth rewatch, which I have and will focus the majority of this video on. Additionally, I want to stress that comfort and depth rewatches aren't necessarily mutually independent. Take one of the most rewatchable and rewatched films of the last decade, for example, in Rian Johnson's Knives Out, a movie that is in equal parts comforting and provides so much more depth on its subsequent rewatches. A lot of the depth has to do with how the story itself unravels, and a lot of the commentary on class here. And the comfort comes in the comedic aspects, the overall vibe of the movie, which is tonally set by the set design and the ensemble cast, and in very large part due to Benoit Blanc, the utterly lovable character that is at the helm of the Knives Out franchise. I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with comfort rewatches, and seen by sitcoms such as The Office, Friends, and How I Met Your Mother being what streaming services often deem as some of the most valuable content, comfort rewatches are an essential part of the TV and film landscape. I mean, I can't count on 2 hands the amount of times that I have rewatched How I Met Your Mother, Friends, Futurama, and Sunny episodes, but judging by these stats, I don't think much argument is necessary to convince anybody to go rewatch something that is easy to put on and easy to understand, which gets me into the importance of depth rewatches. The truest test of greatness is how anything or anybody holds up under examination. Who is often seen as the best basketball player in the world is the one who has performed the best under the highest of pressure. Similarly, the true test of a great film in its depth, meaning, and the craft behind it is how it holds up on rewatches and how much you are able to gain from it on rewatches. On the simplest of levels, I like to think of the genre of comedy, where some of the greatest comedy films that I have seen are the ones where I discover a new joke to laugh at every time I watch it, or a new meaning to an old joke every time I rewatch it. A lot of of my favorite childhood classics are the ones that I have been able to rewatch now with a new perspective on the world and still find absolute enjoyment out of the movies despite this new lens. And in some cases, I find even more enjoyment than what I did as a child due to this new lens. And this isn't absolute to childhood classics either. There are so many movies that should and will change for you as you grow as a person. There are a lot of reasons why you might rewatch a movie. On the simplest of levels, when you truly like something, you tend to be drawn back into it in order to re-experience the vibe. I don't care how little I understand what is happening in Obayashi's house, I am going to return to that movie due to the pure level of spectacle and filmmaking technique that just awed me and entertained me, creating a vibe that I for some reason deeply desire to return to. This leads me to another reason why you might go back to rewatch a movie, especially for those who are in love with the craft of filmmaking. It is to purely understand and dive deeper into the artifice and the aesthetic behind a film that drew you in the first place and possibly go deeper. This is one of the things that I love so much about David Fincher, who is probably my favorite director of the past 3 decades. From Fight Club to Gone Girl, there is something so utterly rewatchable about his films. In part, it is the vibe, the pure technique and mastery of the filmmaking behind it all. A lot has to do with these stories themselves, how they unravel and how much you gain on a plot level with each rewatch. The characters that we are introduced to who are so flawed and layered definitely have something to do with it, but above all, I think I keep returning to Fincher's films, even those that are heavily dependent on the twist because of the Fincher perspective that I want to understand so deeply. This is why I will always return to the work of Park Chan-wook too. Old Boy and The Handmaiden are extremely messed up films that can muddle your perspective on the world, but they are also such layered films, and by even attempting to understand and wrap my head around my feelings in relation to what Park is subjecting us to, there is a deeper understanding of the world itself and myself that I am able to tap into. I say the same for Kubrick, Tarkovsky, PTA, and so many more, and I don't want to limit this to directors alone. Just all great films and all great art begs of you to re-experience them and reward you for that effort. Just because a movie didn't make sense on a first watch doesn't mean that nothing has been taken away and that there's nothing to be gained from further rewatches and further exploration of the art. A movie like Chungking Express or Fallen Angels can wrap you in with the vibe, make you fall in love and come back due to the filmmaking style and characters, and really hit the nail in the coffin with what you gain about your shifting perspectives on love. I touched on this slightly earlier, but rewatching movies doesn't have to solely be a test of the movies themselves. Rewatching a movie about the teenage experience that you first saw when you were 10 should mean something completely different to you when you're 13 and 19, and definitely when you're no longer a teenager. Movies capture a moment in time, and rewatches can help you shape your relationship around these moments. For aspiring filmmakers and people who desire to create art, rewatching, re-experiencing, and truly studying art is essential for understanding what makes the things they love so great. On a human level, there is something innate that lets us know what it is that we in most cases like, and in the best of cases love. So I think that it's also our duty to re-examine those things to find out, firstly, if we truly do love these things, and secondly, what it is that was so gripping about these things, so that for the artist, we know what to bring into our own work, and for the human in general, we can identify what has changed in and what to bring into our own lives.